think with the doctor. Yes, he's got it. Here he comes. Way rock the baby in his plate.
Until morning. Ewing.
Oh, wow. Oh, he's going to try to get one more shot off the last quarter. The ball's there. How about that? Rivers steps over Toronto. He thought about three. He'll put up that three.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, Boom Broadcasting presents Three from Deep. I'm your host, Jason Calenzo. Welcome to the show, guys. Thank you very much for joining me today. Man, it seems like it's going to be the beginning of the end here pretty soon. We had a game 5 the other night, so we'll talk about that here in a little bit. So one team now inches closer to that championship. We also got a little trade news we're going to talk about today. But first things first, guys, welcome. I'm Jason Calenzo. This is Three from Deep. If this is your first time joining me, thank you guys very much for jumping on here. Hit that like and subscribe button. We do appreciate all the love and support that we get from you guys out there. And it's kind of sad for me because this season is winding down. You know, Three from Deep is not going away. I'm still going to be around. I'm still going to do at least one show a week in the off season, barring any huge breaking news. Then I'll jump on too, but take a little bit of a rest. I got some other things I want to do too. I also got some other shows, so be on the lookout for that. But man, Oklahoma City is looking like they got this thing wrapped up, and I want to talk about this here today. But you know, guys, I got my Drew Code Sports Talk shirt on today, so I gotta bring in my guy, Mr. Cody Johnson from Drew Code Sports Talk. He's going to sit here and talk with me today. How we doing, Mr. Cody?
I'm good, NY. How you doing, man? That shirt looks so good on you, man. Thanks for supporting.
Thank you. We always support here, and that's what we do at Boom Broadcasting. That's what my man at Drew Code Sports Talk does, is we all support each other here because this seems to be like a brotherhood here in this podcast game. So
100%.
I love it, man. I thank you very much for joining me today, man. It's always appreciated to have you on here, especially, again, getting a little sad. The season's kind of winding to the end here. So,
yeah,
you know.
But we've had some good basketball. Don't get me wrong. It's a bit heartbreaking. But, I mean, You know what's around the corner is the NFL. And I know this is not a football show, so we won't really we won't placate too much of it because the NFL takes over everything. But we're not going away. And then also, I do want to give you a bunch of kudos because if people don't know, man, you've been on the podcast train. You were doing a live on Instagram the other night. So, dude, shout out to you for starting Three from Deep, getting it to where it's at. And it's only going to go up from here, man. So congrats on the success of it.
I appreciate that. And again, without your support, without Michael Davis's support, the Boom Broadcasting family, I would not be sitting here today. So I thank you guys very much. And yeah, man, only big things to come. And I can't wait for next year because it's only going to be bigger and better. Try some different things out. I already got some stuff on the dome. We're gonna bring out here and try out here on Three from Deep next year. So, but let's jump into this game, man. Game 5. Oklahoma City taking a commanding lead right now, 3-2. They win the game 120-109. Really used that hot first half to kind of propel them. Indiana made it a game, and they got it close, but just kind of ran out of gas. But first question I have for you, Jalen Williams. What an amazing game that he had. 40 points, a career playoff high. SGA, 31 points and 10 assists, so no slouch either. But Jalen Williams, 40 points, man. That is an awesome performance in the finals, especially to seal the game. Do you think that with his performance and kind of seeing what he's been able to do this year, do you think Jalen Williams is the Robin to SGA's Batman? Is this the new dynamic duo in the West, and are they the best pair in the West right now?
Man, that's a tough question. Best pair, I think, is a bit interesting because I think from like how the Thunder are constructed, obviously, with the young players. Clearly, this looks like the best dynamic duo at the moment. Now, in the West, I think that's tough. The West has a ton of other teams. You can probably still make the argument for the Thunder or for the Nuggets if they stay pat. I mean, you got the Lakers still in the West. They've got probably the best 1-2 combo there is. Age, regardless of age, just in terms of like talent that they have on the roster, in terms of, LeBron and Luka. I mean, how do you argue with a better set? And we haven't even talked about, when Anthony Davis is healthy and when Kyrie comes back healthy, that's a really good Batman and Robin duo. But I think the one thing about what Jalen Williams is really showing the league, especially in this series, is he actually is a guy that not only plays tenacious defense, not only can he score, not only is he a distributor, not only can he grab the boards, but he is clearly the opposite and the aggressor in this series that the Thunder need. And, when SGA was sent over to the Thunder and the Thunder had also drafted Chet Holmgren, maybe there was someone that was saying that's the dynamic duo. And Chet Holmgren is fine. He's more of like he's a quieter piece. He's a third option, and that seems to be a good role for him. But Jalen Williams is, in my opinion, like, this is reminding me of what another version of like Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown on the Celtics side of it. And Jalen Williams plays very similar to Jaylen Brown, just because of the defense, tenacious, really good shooters, but also they're more likely to take it to the rack, and they have no problem putting you on a poster if they see fit to do so. Jalen Williams is definitely the Robin of this team. And I would also argue he's the defensive and emotional anchor of this team as well. So to give him like the Robin title is almost a slight to him, because I feel like he does much more than just a complimentary piece to SGA. He is, Jalen Williams, when the Thunder go on a dry spell, he is the one that is doing what he can to bring offensive energy, to be tenacious on defense, to not let the Pacers get out and run and stuff like that. A lot of the defensive presence that the Thunder have had recently has been at the credit to Jalen Williams. So, I mean, in a sense, yes, he's the Robin, but I feel like that's kind of a slight, like it's more like a Batman and Superman kind of a situation, I feel like Jalen Williams is that respected in the league and on this team. I think he does a lot more than just being a sidekick.
Right. And I like that Brown Tatum comparison too. I think that, when I think about that in my head, that matches a little bit, because both similar games, SGA is more offensive geared, a little more the flash, where, Jalen Williams is not afraid to get into the trenches and do some of the dirty work, as well as now we know he can drop 40 points on you if he needs to. And they needed all those 40 points. Again, Indiana was coming back in that game and just kind of fell a little short, and they kind of ran out of steam and ran out of players. We'll talk about that a little bit, but that's the other thing I worry about too, is, if Jalen Williams gets to that point where he is essentially on the same level with SGA, does he stay in Oklahoma City and be that guy next to SGA, or does he spread his wings and go somewhere else? Does Oklahoma City kind of have to lock him down to keep him around, or can you see him going to another team?
If he does go to another team, it's not for a long time, because if I'm not mistaken, he's still on his rookie deal. And when he's up for an extension, the Thunder own the bird rights, which means they can offer him the most money. Right. And it's within Jalen Williams' best interest to re-sign and stick with the Thunder for the additional 4 years. So by year 8, when he does become an unrestricted free agent, or, maybe something happens in the future where he becomes a trade piece, which I doubt. But, I think Jalen Williams is going to extend and re-sign with the Thunder. Will he finish his career with the Thunder? Maybe is another question, because with how the NBA is nowadays, there is no such thing as just a one loyalty of a team. It's very far and in between. I mean, SGA, not to his fault at all. I mean, he originally was drafted by the Clippers and a part of the Paul George deal that sent him over to the Thunder. So, I mean, look at Westbrook, who started his career with the Thunder, and now he's been on a handful of other teams. So, having one team is very rare. But I think, Jalen Williams is in the best situation, because with the requirements now to play games and to even be qualified for certain awards, and how the NBA CBA is set up, you make more money when you're on like an all NBA team, an all defensive team, and an all-star. And like, the only way that you're able to be in contention for some of these awards is the amount of games you play. And Jalen Williams has shown that he's like an Iron Man-esque type of player. And so I could see him like getting, some sort of defensive player of the year, maybe some offensive award to where he's now allowed to have a very high extension. And it would be within his best interest to stick around with, the Thunder at this moment. Now, again, in like 5 seasons from now, we'll see where the Thunder are at with Chet Holmgren, with SGA, with how the rest of the roster looks, if they win another championship or they never win a championship. I think that all plays into factor, but I don't see Jalen Williams leaving anywhere. And honestly, if the Thunder did allow him to walk out the door, that's because the Thunder are a bad organization. And right now they've made all the best moves in terms of like signing, trading, and drafting. So right now, like the Thunder are the blueprint to have a successful team, especially one that's essentially been homegrown.
I wonder if, not saying the Thunder are going to win the chip, but I think they're going to win the chip. I wonder if they're going to send Playoff P or Podcast P. I wonder if they're going to send him a ring, because it was because of him and the way his trades. And it's amazing how kind of, the 6 degrees of separation happens sometimes in the NBA. This team essentially was constructed the way it is, and it kind of all centers around Paul George and his trade with all the draft capital they got. And you talk about an organization that is being run efficient and just at the top of their game. They have one of the best young teams in the league. They literally just won 68 games in the West, which is one of the hardest divisions to win in. And they have tons of draft capital. So I don't see them doing anything stupid. They're one of those teams that if they did something weird, something must be going on, because I've yet to see them make a really bad deal. So it's going to be interesting to see. But yeah, I think they owe Paul George a ring and a thank you, maybe one of them fruit baskets or something for the trade. Because I know he
a T-shirt that says "We couldn't have done this without you."
Exactly. I got traded to the 76ers and my former team won the chip. Something.
And I have Joel Embiid as my teammate.
Ooh, don't trust the process because it don't work. We'll talk about the 76ers in the offseason because they need a lot of help. But let's jump in here. Indiana has made this a series. I think we all can say we are super surprised because before this final started, we literally talked about this is Oklahoma City's title to lose. We said this is literally handed to them on a silver platter. And man, I tell you what, Indiana has played some great basketball. Their bench depth is probably one of the best in the league. Last couple of games, it really hasn't helped them. But again, I think they're kind of just running out of steam. But, I am super impressed on how well Indiana has played in these finals, because they could have just folded. They could have said, okay, we're not the better team. But they came out and they came to play. So kudos to them. But, right now, Oklahoma City looks really tough. And, man, Haliburton has had one of the best, playoffs any player can have. Some game winners. He's really making a name for himself. Started off the finals decent, and then now this injury. Does this injury for Tyrese Haliburton, because he's going, I think, in the MRI, we're waiting to hear some news on what happens. He says he's playing no matter what in Game 6. But does this injury spell doom for the Indiana Pacers?
Yeah, I think so, because listen, I'm not going to plant my flag on the stand of Tyrese Haliburton is a superstar right now, because I think he is, although there have been some games in this final series where, it doesn't look like he's put his best foot forward, or he doesn't really show up the entirety of the game. It almost feels like he's playing catch up with the game because he's gone quiet or gone scoreless or hasn't really been effective. But I think Tyrese Haliburton is much bigger to the Pacers than people realize, because even when you look at Game 5, As soon as Tyrese Haliburton went down with this calf injury that he sustained in the first quarter, don't know the degree to the severity of it, but you can already tell that the Pacers just were not the same team. Sure, you can put in TJ McConnell. Sure, you can have Pascal Siakam have a great game, and kudos to Siakam for keeping the Pacers in the game. Naismith doing his best. All the other role players that you were kind of mentioning, Turner, they were doing their best to contribute. Say what you want about Tyrese Haliburton, but clearly this team needs him on the floor to be a distributor, to be a threat on the three-point line, take guys off the dribble, energy. I mean, without Tyrese Haliburton on the floor fully go, this Pacers team is no more than a 500 ball club at best. And you can't be a 500 ball club with the Thunder. The reason why the Pacers have taken some games from the Thunder has been because of Tyrese Haliburton and his ability to distribute, and when the defense collapses to Tyrese, he finds Siakam or he finds another player that's open. And the defense that Tyrese Haliburton also plays, he's not a scrub on defense either. He's long and he's lengthy and he's tough. So the fact that the Pacers won't have him 100% is kind of concerning, because we're going to go back to Indiana. There's a lot of pressure on Indiana to extend, but at the same time, is this injury going to risk for compromising Tyrese Haliburton in Game 7 as well? Because I don't know if it could be one of those things where, and I don't know the severity of it too. I don't know if he's been dealing with it for a while or whatnot, or only sustained it in Game 5. But, very similar to calf injuries are a tricky one, because, the one player that comes to mind that had a calf injury during the finals that came back too soon was KD, and he blew his Achilles from it.
Yep.
So there's that fear. Do we roll the dice on this? And if the Pacers don't want to roll the dice on it because they're thinking about their future with Tyrese Haliburton, game over. This is not going to 7 games. It'll be done in 6. But if Tyrese Haliburton at least looks like somewhat of Tyrese Haliburton, more so than what we saw in Game 5, because you can't put up a donut in game, against the Thunder. No player, if you are a superstar, you can't put up a donut against the best team in the NBA right now, especially if you want a fighting chance to win the championship. So I think Tyrese Haliburton, hopefully, the calf injury isn't serious, but the Pacers are on the ropes, and they need to do everything they can to absorb the haymakers that the Thunder are throwing at them right now, because the Thunder are sharks right now. They're smelling the blood in the water, and they want to take these guys out.
Yep, and it is a shame, because again, they have been playing phenomenal basketball, the Pacers, that pace of play. And I think the last couple of games you saw the injury lingering because their offense looked out of sync. They didn't look as fast. They weren't moving the ball like they normally do. So I think this injury was probably more than they let on, whether it was him, whether it was a team, those kind of things you don't know. But I think this thing has definitely been bothering him. And the thresholds, if Haliburton scores 20 points, they win. If Indiana scores 110 points, they win. And their losses so far they've been under 110 points, and Haliburton's been under 20 points. Only 4 points hurts. But what's worse is very disappointed in Indiana's bench this last game, the sense of urgency. And that's, when you're in the finals, this is it. You can't think about blowing your Achilles, because you can blow your Achilles like getting out of the shower, especially, old guys like myself, I can sneeze and throw my back out, which I've done, which is crazy. But Matherin with only 7 points, just kind of non-existent, making some mistakes in that Game 4 and just kind of spilling over to Game 5. Obi Toppin's the only guy that's been kind of consistent the last couple of games. But TJ McConnell had 18 points, but they needed something. There was something else missing, with that bench. Nebhard, Turner, just kind of a quiet game. I still think that offense runs better through Siakam rather than Haliburton, but Haliburton being hurt and being slow definitely killed that pace of play. And I don't see, man, I just can't see Indiana bouncing back from this. Oklahoma City is a strong team. Their bench has showed up. Their star players. Hartenstein has been a monster. So I love me some Hartenstein. I miss him. I miss him in New York, big time. Just kind of one of those guys that gets in the way. But if SGA and Williams do their dynamic duo thing, I think it's a wrap. Even in Indiana, because that is a tough building to play in. But when your star player, has an injury and is compromised, who's going to be the next guy up? And I don't think they really have that, third horse. I mean, they have a bunch of good guys that can come off the bench, but who's going to give them 25, 30 points? I don't think they really have that next guy. So, I think Indiana, Indiana has, like I said, played well this whole series, but I apologize. Go ahead, man.
No. I was going to say, I think this is what you and I talked about at the top of the series before it even tipped off, is one of the things we're concerned with is where is the scoring of the Pacers going to come from? Sure, you have Haliburton, but he's not necessarily a dropping 40 every single night kind of a guy. He's usually around like 15 to 20-ish, and then, he makes his money off of assist and rebounding. That's like what he's really kind of the best at. And then you have Siakam on the team, and that's really the only scoring duo that you have that is the true threat. You don't really have anything outside of that. Whereas you look at the Thunder, like game one, you had Chet Holmgren. Even though it was a loss, Chet Holmgren looked good in game one and in game two. You had Jalen Williams, who did well in game 1 and 2. SGA, there's no answer for that. And then Alex Caruso in game 4, I think, had 20 points by himself. So, I mean, the Thunder just seem to, go into their bag, find another player that's going to be able to contribute. And don't get me wrong, Pacers have a really good bench, but there's a reason why they're coming off of the bench. They're not guys that you can just put in the starting lineup and you're going to get the same production. They don't they don't flow with the game the same way. And, I also, too, I want to point out, you want to look at some of the stats from the game. This is how Tyrese Haliburton's impact was huge. Yes, he played 34 minutes. Majority of that was the latter half of the second half. But the team, Indiana as a team committed 23 turnovers compared to the Thunder's 11. 6 of those turnovers came from Pascal Siakam because he's having to handle the ball a little bit more, so he's not able to work off ball. So he's not naturally a point guard, whereas Tyrese Haliburton, now granted, Tyrese Haliburton had 3 of his own, but he's only averaged about 1.5 this whole series. So he doubled his turnovers, and I would argue because of the injury he sustained that he's working through. And that right there, you can't turn the ball over to a Thunder team that also is really great on the fast break. It's just, it's a spell for disaster. And to your credit, Jason, who else do the Indiana Pacers have to call on to get, I need 20 points from you tonight. Can you give me 20 points? Like, that's a struggle. Even for Miles Turner, who you can make the argument is their third option, that's a struggle for him to get 20. So,
yeah, I think it's all said and done here. And the biggest question is, is this it? Is game 6 it? Or does Indiana have even a chance to stretch this to game 7?
I mean, I think I give him a puncher's chance. Like, it depends on how Tyrese Haliburton responds to treatment. Obviously, he's going to be rehabbing today, and I think they don't start. I don't think they don't play until either tomorrow or Thursday. So
Thursday night.
Thursday night. Okay, so he's got an extra day to recover. So we'll see, and to what extent, I don't know. He may play 2 minutes of the first quarter, maybe the last 2 minutes of the second quarter. They may conserve him till the end of the game, depending on how close they can be. But in Indiana, who knows what player might step up because of that energy? Because role players play better at home than they do on the road.
Right.
And who knows, maybe they might have some life. But the Thunder have also won in Indiana already, which is like why we're at this predicament where we can. If I'm Indiana, or excuse me, if I'm Oklahoma, I'm closing it out in Indiana. I'm not waiting or risking a game 7 because I'm not trying to give Tyrese Haliburton a Willis Reed situation where he can come down the rafters and all of a sudden spark life into the team.
Right.
I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to squash some dreams today. Like, we'll celebrate on the plane home, but I'm not. We're not going to give these guys any more life. And I think that that's the mentality that the Thunder will come into. And if anything, like every time the Thunder have faced adversity in this series or in this playoffs, they have answered the bell. And I think what you and I had talked about too, when we were talking about the series was the series with the Thunder, and the Nuggets really showed the Thunder grew up, and it's like this is their step to hopefully win a championship. And from all accounts, it looks like this is their opportunity. Like, don't squander it. So we'll see.
Right.
But the last thing you want to do is give them hope at home with the role players, because again, like, they're a team that doesn't have a legit number 3 scorer, but they got to the playoffs in the finals because of, a collective effort. So,
right. And I wonder if Indiana should sit Haliburton and really, okay, let's game plan. Look, he's hurt. We need to get to a game 7. I want to have him kind of healthy for a game 7. I'm going to start somebody else. I need somebody to get out there. You throw Toppin out there. Maybe you start TJ McConnell. You put him out there. You try to get the crowd into it, because you need the pace of play. And that's the thing. If you put Haliburton out there and you got to slow down to kind of get him to catch up on the court, that's just going to play into Oklahoma's defense's hands. And to me, the only person or the only team that can lose this game is Oklahoma. Can shoot themselves in the foot by either making mistakes, by letting Indiana hang around in the game, because they've been down 20 plus points. They've been known to come back. They've done it against this team. They've done it the whole playoffs. They've gotten the bounce. Like, as a Knicks fan, I still see that ball bouncing up in the air and then coming back down, and one of Haliburton's shots there at the end of the game 1 against the Knicks. So that's, to me, Oklahoma City needs to close this out, because they don't want to go to a game 7 and then have some kind of weird ball bounce and then you lose to the Pacers. So I think they've already seen that. So this is Oklahoma's game. This sets up right into their wheelhouse, because you got a guy with a bum tire. So it's going to slow them down. And if you slow them down, that defense is going to clamp down, because Oklahoma City's defense is really good. And you sick Jalen Williams on these guys. So I think it's a wrap. I think Oklahoma City goes home and wins the chip. SGA, I think, gets the most valuable player of the finals. I think he gets the final MVP. I really think he does.
Jalen Williams has an argument to that.
He does, but SGA, and I saw this earlier, he has this year in the playoffs, he has 12 30-point plus 5 assist games in a postseason. So he's ahead of Michael Jordan, and he's ahead of LeBron James. So he's played well in the finals. He's had 4 of the 5 games over 30 points. Jalen Williams, second runner up, but I think SGA is going to have the MVP regular season, and he's going to have the finals MVP. I really do believe he's going to get it, because this is the game. This is that closeout game. This is the game where you got to just rip the hearts out of these guys. This is the Mamba mentality, where you can't feel sorry because their guy is down or whatever. You got to go out there and play your best game and solidify you being one of the top guys in the NBA. And I think this is SGA's moment. I just hope the lights aren't too bright for him where he struggles, but I don't think I've really seen that from him. Sometimes you see certain star players tend to get the yips when they're put in that kind of light and that kind of predicament, but I don't see that coming out of SGA. So I think it's over. SGA gets the MVP.
Okay. No, I agree.
So, but man, we'll see. Thursday night, these playoffs have been anything but predictable. So we all could be wrong, and we could be back for a game 7. So it could be, who knows, man, crazier things have happened, and we've seen some crazy stuff in these playoffs right now. So I'm excited. Again, guys, if you're not watching these NBA finals, you should be watching, because it is some great basketball and some great drama. So we're going to jump into a little bit here. Let's get out of the finals mode here. We'll get back into that Thursday night. We'll see how that goes. But we've already had some off-season moves going on in the NBA, which everybody is waiting on bated breath. Again, I'm surprised that this trade even went down. I think a lot of these teams are waiting for the finals to be over, which I talked about before, which I like when the finals gets the limelight, and other players don't try to upstage it, or, hey, I want to make a move, or let's make this trade and let's outshine the final. So to me, this is a big trade, but I don't think it was one of those ones that outshine the finals. But Desmond Bane getting dealt from the Grizz, going to Orlando, which at the beginning of the season, I had Orlando as my sleeper. Unfortunately, Paulo got hurt early. Then Franz got hurt in the middle of the season. So I think that kind of killed a lot of their momentum. They still were able to have a 500 season. They still were able to make the playoffs. They got a game against the Celtics, but again, that's, you're going against the defending NBA champions. So kudos to Orlando. But man, what a heck of a move to get Desmond Bane. Sneaky young still. He's only 26. He'll be 27 June 25th. So still sneaky young. Averages over 20 points a game. Shoots over 40% from the three, which is really solid. So you're pairing him with Paulo Blancharo, Franz Wagner, Jalen Suggs. So can you see Orlando with this addition getting into the East conversation next year for maybe to challenge for a title? Do you think this kind of pushes them into that next tier of top teams?
I mean, I think this puts them in the realm of more likely to be a playoff team, like getting a top 6 seed rather than a play-in team, which is where they started.
Right.
But I'm a little apprehensive about Orlando, not because I don't think they have the pieces in place, but because they're so young, and no offense, but this organization's still trying to figure out how to win. Like, this was their first playoff berth in, 10 years or something like that, since Dwight Howard. So,
right.
I need to see if they can even like be a functioning team to where they have a winning mentality. Contenders in the East is a little steep in my opinion, only because, like, yes, sure, Boston's probably going to be not the number 1 seed anymore. I still think the Knicks are a top 3 team. I mean, we have the Pacers. I think that the Pacers are in the conversation to be one of the top teams in the East, especially with what they did with the team that they had this season. I can only imagine in the offseason teams that are going to want to go play for Indiana next to Tyrese Haliburton, because one of the great things about the playoffs and the NBA Finals is everyone's getting to watch it, which means, players that are looking at free agency of like, what's a good destination to go to.
Right.
And again, no shade to Orlando. They had some success. They got a game against Boston in the first round. But you have a bunch of great players, collection of talent, but can you put it all together? And I think that's what's difficult is, do they have a coach that can get the best out of them? Can these guys under bright lights shine? And also, like Desmond Bane, is he a product of the system he came from, or is he really that much of a difference maker? I need to see it. And not to say that Orlando gave up anything major outside of 4 first-round picks, which that's something that they got to figure out later. But, you give up KCP, who, former NBA champion. You give up Cole Anthony, who the experiment was over. I mean, he had a good run, but it's time for him to have a new scenery.
Right.
And, you look at Memphis side of it, it looks like that they are trying to completely change that roster, because you're not going to keep the same roster that you just fired Taylor Jenkins from and then keep it the same. You're going to have to change it up a bit and see what you can get. And who knows, maybe Memphis, this isn't their last move. Maybe I'm foreshadowing on that. But, as far as the Magic, I think that this makes them maybe a top 6 seed most. But again, I think there's other teams that might be waiting in the wings to be a more probable contender than the Magic right now.
I don't know, man. I'm thinking a little bit different. So I'm looking at the standings here. Of course, Boston, no Jason Tatum. Is Jaylen Brown enough? I think Boston's going to be a player in a lot of offseason moves because they know they're not going to have Tatum next year. Do they keep Brown, trade away Porzingis? Probably Al Horford's not going to be there. You got Peyton Pritchard, your sixth man of the year. You may need him starting as opposed to sixth man of the year. You got Cleveland, who I think Cleveland's a really good team, man, but, fell flat in the playoffs. Do they do a lot of roster moves? Do they kind of shake up their team? You look at the Knicks right now. The Knicks have tons of questions. Karl Anthony Towns, is he going to still be there? Are they looking to move him? They still don't have a coach. So you got a new coach coming in, new system. Are the Knicks going to be the Knicks this year? Pacers, they're still a good team, but was this a one-year wonder, or is this sustainable? And that's not going to be known till next year, until they start winning some games, because this might be like, okay, they caught fire one year and then next year they're a 500 ball club. You got the Bucks, who knows what the Bucks are going to do. They're in rebuild mode. Do they, what is the Giannis questions going on? He hasn't officially done anything yet. So, and then you had the upstart Pistons, who had a phenomenal year, but again, sustainability. Is it a one-year wonder, or do the Pistons go back and be the Pistons again? So to me, this Orlando team, if they stay healthy with Paolo and Franz and now Bane, to me, that's a huge, huge upside. And I think they're young enough and talented enough to be in the top 3 conversation in the East, because you're going to have a lot of teams sliding back in the East. And I don't see any other teams really bubbling up, because you talk about the Hornets, the Sixers, the Nets, the Raptors, the Heat. Maybe if the Heat make some moves, Bulls, maybe if they make some moves, Hawks possibly, but I just don't see them right now. To me, Orlando on paper is probably one of the top 3 to 4 teams in the East with this addition.
I mean, I don't disagree with why your perspective is that for, the Magic. I mean, like you said, on paper, if healthy, but, I would make the argument that, there's been health problems the last few seasons. Right. If we want them to remain healthy at the start of the season, that's fine. But in the NBA, 82 games, that's a wear and tear on your body, and it's a game of attrition. And can these players stay healthy? Now, Desmond Bane doesn't have necessarily an injury history. So, I mean, you have some endurance there. But, I look at a team like the Raptors, I think are going to be a much improved team. And I have a feeling that they're going to make some off-season moves. And there's been reports that the Raptors are looking to make improvements, and they've done so through the trade deadline. So I would say the Raptors are a team that might be one of those teams that gets more improved. Atlanta, I actually think that Atlanta might have a discussion with now, what's the head coach's name? Quinn Snyder being there. Snyder. He's really kind of changed around that organization, where Trey Young, excuse me. Wow. So many Treys.
Trey Young.
Yeah.
Yep.
Who
loves to burn the Knicks, man. So he loves playing in the Garden.
And now that he's got a coach that he loves to play with, now he doesn't want to leave Atlanta. So who can you bring now to Atlanta to get some more firepower over there in Atlanta? And then let's not forget about the Heat. Now, the Heat might be in the market to get KD. And again, I think we're going to probably talk about this shortly, but with what KD's asking price is, or at least the Suns, maybe the Suns can get a comparable package. And then now Miami gets a player like KD to pair with Hero and Bam. And I think now that team on paper would be better to me than Orlando, because at least the Heat have a history of winning. They know what it takes to win a championship. They have the coach for it. So I just think that like Orlando's going to be in the conversation to be like a playoff team for sure. I think they're going to get into the playoffs, but a top 3 team, it's a little rich for me. And don't make me make this argument for your Knicks, because even the Knicks right now without a head coach, if they were remaining the same, and let's assume they bring in a Taylor Jenkins, let's assume that they bring in who's the coach?
Mike Brown, possibly.
No, Mike Brown is the same thing. Like, no offense, but Mike Brown is also Tom Thibodeau. Like, it should have just kept Tom Thibodeau. It would have been the exact same thing. Yeah. Who was the coach from the Nuggets that just got fired? I'm forgetting his name right now.
Mike Malone.
Yeah, if Mike Malone gets on that team, I think that the Knicks now are much more improved because of the coaching. Now, they don't have to touch the roster, and I think that they're a much better team. But I think the Knicks, with Jalen Brunson, with Bridges, even with Cat, and who knows if Cat's going to be on the team or not, but even with Cat, I think that they are a top 4 in the East team more than Orlando. I think so, because at least the Knicks have playoff experience. They now have been battle tested. They're a tougher team, in my opinion, than Orlando. Right. And I just think, like, to give Orlando a discussion on paper, and I know it's all on paper, this is all hypotheticals, is a bit tough for me to come to the table with, because, like, if we're talking on paper, then 3 seasons ago when Chicago had Lonzo Ball, DeMar DeRozan, and Zach LaVine, on paper, they should have been like one of the number 1 teams in the East, and they weren't. They were like a 9th seed at best, because when you get on the floor, you got to make it all work, and it goes to coaching, it goes to system and all that stuff. So I'm just not a believer in Orlando yet, but it, again, like you, I'm a bit jaded because I've seen this movie before and I see how the reruns are, and I just don't know if I'm a buyer quite yet. I need to see it all work. So,
well, we got it on tape, so we'll see what happens next year. I'll make sure I save these clips, so when Orlando's in the 3rd spot, I'll make sure I run this back, because then the Knicks will probably be first.
Make sure you run this back when, like, we've gone at least like 30 games into the season. Don't send me a screenshot when they're in 3rd place after like 4 games.
2 games.
Okay? Yeah.
3rd place. No, I wouldn't do that. But the flip side of this trade, the Grizzlies. Mm-hmm. You know, I know a lot of people are reading into this Desmond Bane trade. Ja's not going anywhere. I still find it a little difficult that the Memphis Grizzlies are going to give Ja the big bag. So many questions about him. Not even the off the court stuff with Ja concerns me. It's his availability that really concerns me about making him the face of the franchise, giving him the max deal. So it'll be interesting to see, is the Memphis, rebuilding, is Jaren Jackson Jr. now that he can get a max contract for winning Defensive Player of the Year. Will they do that and give it to him, or will they do some kind of sign and trade and kind of move him and get more pieces and maybe get some more draft capital? So a lot of interesting things going on in Memphis right now. That's why this offseason is going to be super, super exciting. So really curious about that. But my other thing I want to talk about here is draft picks. And we talked about this a little bit off camera here, but Mikal Bridges for the Knicks, 5 first-round picks. Desmond Bane, 4 picks and a 4 first-round picks and a first-round swap. Is the draft pick thing for the NBA just like is it not really valuable? Like, these guys throw draft picks around like it means nothing. And then at the same aspect, you look at the Luka trade, who only got 1 first-round pick. So, but that's a whole nother story. I think that's the anomaly rather than the norm. But the norm is you'll see these 5 picks, the stuff coming out of the Suns. They want 10 picks for Kevin Durant, a 36-year-old aging superstar, and you want to give up the next 10 years of your franchise for a guy that may give you 2-3 more good years, if that. So do you think the NBA devalues the draft pick and just throws them around like they're nothing compared to some of the other leagues like the NFL or the NHL or MLB?
I think what makes that difficult is I don't think the NBA has any problem with draft picks. I think certain teams, ownerships, and management within the teams of the NBA value draft picks differently. And I'm going to give you an example why. And this is going to incriminate my LA Lakers. When we traded for Anthony Davis, we literally mortgaged our future to have him. We gave up Lonzo Ball, we gave up Julius Randle, we gave up Jordan Clarkson, we gave up Brandon Ingram. And imagine if those 5 were on one team right now, that, and given time to develop under a good coaching staff, maybe that's a a contender or, a middle of the pack kind of a team in the West, right? Like those players now have blossomed into very, very good players and have had great flashes of careers since they were traded from the Lakers. But the Lakers, with those picks and those players, got Anthony Davis. We did get one championship out of it, but majority of Anthony Davis's career was injury riddled. Like, we can agree to that, right?
Right.
Now, I say that, like, yes, it was only one pick that we essentially gave up to acquire Luka, and we're still loving that to this day. And then you look at a team like the New York Knicks, who had to give up 5 picks for Mikal Bridges. But then you look at a team like the Thunder, who used enough picks to acquire SGA and kept their assets, their picks, with a very smart organization, a very smart scouting department, drafted players like Chet Holmgren, Jalen Williams. And I know there's a plethora of other players, but that team right there has highlighted when you have a well-run organization. Sam Presti has done a bang-up job, because this is not the first time he has rebuilt these Thunders. Once upon a time, he also drafted KD when they were with Seattle. He drafted Russell Westbrook. He drafted James Harden. He built the Thunder once upon a time, once before, and did it again through draft picks. And the reason why I say this is going to be an indictment on my Lakers and teams like, your Knicks and Orlando, if they don't value draft picks, another team will. And then the team that values the draft picks probably has a good scouting department, which is why they're flourishing. And no offense to my Lakers, like, we have done a okay job with being a second round exit, because we keep signing guys to 1-year deals, building it around LeBron James, because we are mortgaging our future for him. And then you look at a team like the Nuggets, who drafted Jokic, drafted Jamal Murray, and they won a championship before the Lakers were able to win a second one. So I think certain teams in the NBA just value draft picks. They understand that draft picks mean you get cap relief and you can coach them up into your system, rather than, this guy had one good season, we're going to pay him a lot of money to come over, and he can't duplicate the same thing. Well, because he's a mercenary, he's jumping around from team to team. There's no incentive. Whereas a homegrown player like what the Thunder are doing right now are really showing Orlando that, like, if they just had their scouting department, their GM and their head coach just having a vision for the future and what they're looking for, they could turn it around, because the Thunder are doing it now. And I would argue Boston has also done that too. Like, those two organizations have rebuilt themselves over and over. And it didn't take, Boston did do it in a flashy acquisitions way back in the day, but
that's 08 when they got the big three, but that was a while ago. But they've resurrected themselves 2 other times since then. Right.
And you look at a team like Orlando, who hasn't been back to the finals, like what we just talked about, since Dwight Howard, and they drafted him. Like, those were draft picks. Right. So, sure, you can get players and flip your draft picks, but we're kind of seeing now that if you mortgage your future and you don't win, you are then on a tailspin to not be successful. And another team I'll give you an example of a poor drafting, the Sixers. They have only hit on 2 players recently, and yet they were known for taking to get Joel Embiid, who didn't even play all of but 20 games last season. Right. Sure, they have Maxey. Sure, they have, I can't even remember the other player, Grimes, I think, is the other player who they have now, who they can build around.
Right.
But ironically enough, those are draft picks that they use. They didn't sign people like Paul George, who made them prosperous. So my opinion on it is depends on the team. Some teams value them, and I think those that value them are the smart teams.
Yeah, and you can throw the Spurs in there too as one of those smart teams. I mean, they were homegrown. You look at David Robinson, Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker. Now they got Victor Wembanyama. I mean, and then they just did some trades where now you get De'Aaron Fox. I mean, it's just crazy to see these number of picks flying around like that, and it just you scratch your head and go, man, I mean, instant gratification. And I think that's the thing in the NBA and with a lot of sports is they're looking for now. I got to win now. If I don't win now, we're not going to be on prime time. We're not going to sell tickets. We're not going to sell jerseys. I got to go out there. I got to trade the farm and my guy's farm next door to get this player, because if I don't get this guy, I'm going to have a bad team. I can't have a rebuild. I can't have a young squad. So it's the Amazon effect. Everybody wants everything now. You just fly the drone in and drop me a star player, please. I'll give you the next 10 years of my draft picks. Meanwhile, the team that takes those next 10 years is building and grinding and looking for the next guy, and then ends up like, Oklahoma City, where they still have a ton of draft capital and they've got a phenomenal young team. Same thing with the Rockets have started to do that now. Again, sprinkle, a couple of veterans in there, but again, phenomenal young team. So a lot more is going to happen this offseason. I think everybody is just kind of sitting here waiting for the bombshell. It's the Luka effect. I think that kind of spoiled us in the middle of the year. All of a sudden, boom, and we're waiting for the next boom. We're waiting for the KD boom. We're waiting to see if Giannis, has a boom. We're waiting to see if somebody else moves. So we're gonna have a lot of fun this offseason reporting stuff and kind of talking about it, because with these NBA teams, man, you never know. The GMs get a bug, and the next thing you know, you got a big old trade happening. So we're going to be excited to sit here and talk about it. So some good stuff, man. So Cody, thank you very much for joining me today here on 3 from Deep. I probably got, I think, at least one more episode in me, and then I'll be on hiatus next week. Because now, if it does go to Game 7, I'll have a show after the game, and we'll talk about it here. But I have a feeling that Saturday may be my last show for at least a week, guys. So I'm going to take a little hiatus next week, and then we'll be back the following week and talk about the off season and some of the different scenarios and maybe any breaking news that happens. So, Mr. Cody Johnson, tell everybody where they can find you.
Yeah, so you guys can find me and my shows at Drew Code Sports Talk. It's here on YouTube and all the other social medias. I feel like I repeat myself, in Jason here, the handsome man, having just phenomenal shirt and our merch. So I appreciate his support, and behind the scenes, all the Boom guys too have been really, really awesome with accepting me. So I'm really lucky. But Jason, man, anytime you need me, you let me know. And I'm so proud of you for what you've turned 3 from Deep into. And I'm excited for season 2, man. Like, season 2 is going to be fire when you are ready to turn it back on. So
I'm ready, man. I'm already, like I said, I got some stuff cooking up in the lab. So again, guys, thank you very much for joining me here on 3 from Deep. Let's go. We got tomorrow. We got Game 6. Can Indiana stay alive, or is this OK's chip? So thank you guys very much. I'll see you on Saturday. We'll talk about it. Cody, I will talk to you later, man. Guys, thank you very much for joining me, man. Peace. We out.